Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Album of Record podcast. I'm Craig Lindell. I'm going to be joined by Andrew Schnitke in just a minute. On this episode of the podcast, we talk about Candlebox, Jerry Cantrell, and does Bush lip sync through their shows? We also talk about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz because they talked about music. We want to talk about the music that they like and why they picked the bands that they picked. Last but not least, we talk about Celine Dion having commentary about her song, My Heart Will Go On, being used at a Trump Vance rally. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy the show. Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
Hey, Craig, going pretty good. How are you tonight?
So, Andrew, do you have any poetry for us to kick off this episode?
Man, it is so funny you should ask that. I do have some new metal poetry for us. I told Craig before we started, we've crossed the halfway point. We're getting close to the end of the new metal poetry, and I'm going to miss these when we're done, but we'll do a couple here tonight. All right, here we go. First one. I've become so numb, I can't feel you there. I've become so tired, so much more aware. I'm becoming this. All I want to do is be more like me and be less like you.
My brain's not working tonight, Andrew.
I thought you would have this one.
Do I get a hint?
The singer is no longer with us.
I'm just gonna. I don't know.
He sang at Chris Cornell's wake.
Oh, now I know it's Linkin Park. Okay,
Linkin Park. No,
God, it sounded so familiar, but I just couldn't hear it from the rhythm of the way you read it.
Yep.
All right.
So we got Linkin Park there, which I want to do an episode on Linkin Park sometime. I got things to say about them, sort of a guilty pleasure, if you will. I don't know if I feel guilty about it per se, but like they definitely got a rap as a band that like wasn't cool for a while, like, you know, and again, wrapped into the whole new metal thing, but I think they're much better than people gave them credit for. So
well, I was very much tuned out of Linkin Park when they were at their peak, because I thought I was too cool for them. For whatever,
I did too, for a
while, whatever that's worth.
But they wore me down. Like I got to the point where I couldn't deny it anymore, and a lot of that had to do with Chester's vocals, of course, like just an absolute generational singer. But we'll cover that in the excuse me, the Linkin Park episode. All right, number 2 here. Click, click, boom. I'm coming down on the stereo. Hear me on the radio. Click, click, boom. I'm coming down with a new style, and you know it's buck wild. Click, click, boom. I'm on the radio station, touring around the nation, leaving the scene in devastation.
See, and I think that's POD, but I'm questioning myself even as I say it.
So I also thought it was POD, which is hilarious. And
oh, no.
I was like, well, but I knew we had already done a POD song. Like, and I was like, there's no way they repeated POD in the new metal poetry book. And they didn't. It is not POD.
I never would have gotten this.
It is Saliva. Yeah. Which I'm sure I've never listened to a Saliva album. But like that song just, you know, it's instantly recognizable. But
so I believe that was one of the songs that was a rejoiner for the Opie and Anthony show. And so I heard it all the time because I was waiting for them to come back from commercial break. In the old days of these syndicated radio stations, they all ran local commercials at certain points. And then there was a time cue. And while they waited for everybody to get synced up and get out of their commercials across the nation, they would play these rejoiners. And then finally Opie and Anthony would come out to a nationwide audience. But other than that, or maybe it was that on a opening screen for FIFA or Madden or one of those.
I was just gonna say I'm positive it was in a video game, a sports video game. I don't remember which one anymore, but it was also frequently played at hockey games. Like I would often hear it at hockey games, and I'm trying to think if maybe even like other sporting, but I know like at Blue Jackets games here in Columbus, they definitely used to play it quite a bit. Back in the 2000s.
Oh, here we go. All right. It was in the first few don't mean anything to me as video games. Project Gotham Racing, MX 2002, Johnny Mosley Mad Tricks, Test Drive Overdrive, BMX XXX, Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX 3. Here's where I remember it. UFC 2009 Undisputed. I played a UFC game or two.
Sure. I'm surprised it wasn't like in a Tony Hawk game. It seems like
the
BMX
games are essentially Tony Hawk games, just with bikes.
Like for sure. You got the Dave Mirra BMX. Yep.
And Johnny Mosley too. That had to be skiing, right?
Sure. Yes.
Come on.
Question mark.
I think he was an Olympian.
Okay. Well, wasn't he also? Didn't he also host a season of the like Road Rules Challenge or something like that? I know Dave Mirra did lots, but I feel like Johnny Mosley
did. He hosted the challenge.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, it's so
Johnny
funny,
Mosley.
like how disposable those like seasons of those are. Like I watched a ton of the challenge, tons of actual Road Rules, obviously Real World, and like all the seasons and people, and they all just are intermingled into one just blob in my brain. Like it's so. I
never watched any of those. I was out after the Real World, and I loved the Real World, Chicago, Vegas, San Francisco, all the old the Real Worlds.
You never watched any of the original Road Rules, like the original, like when they were like traveling in an RV. Like those were good. Those were good.
You know what? I probably did. But they were.
You probably
kind of forgettable.
Real World in your head, like
right?
Because again, it's all interchangeable and intermingled. It's just one thing. If you watched one, like you kind of know the gist of all of that.
So the main topic, or the first topic for today, is something that, in a lot of ways, I feel like we already talked about, but we've got a new subject matter. First of all, we signed up to go to. Everybody thought it was a really great idea to go to this concert in August, back when we bought tickets in January, and then all of a sudden on a Tuesday night, everyone was kind of like, "It's a Tuesday night, and our kids are all about to go back to school, but we're going to go down to Nautica in Cleveland, and we're going to go see Bush, Jerry Cantrell, and Candlebox." And I saw Candlebox on their quote-unquote farewell tour, I think about 6 months ago. So first of all, if they extend the tour because they have an opportunity in the same calendar year, do they just get to call that a part of their farewell tour, or is this just totally going against the idea of a farewell tour?
I mean, it's a fair question. I feel like Zach Bryan has been on his, like what he has said would be his last ever tour. But he's been on this tour for what feels like a year and a half now, and it seems like it just keeps going. So maybe it is your last tour if you just never actually end it and you just always keep touring. And so maybe that Candlebox has the same approach. Like this is their farewell tour, and if they just keep going, they never actually stop.
All right. Headline date, March 27, 2023. Candlebox has announced the details of its 30th anniversary celebration and farewell tour, The Long Goodbye Tour 2023, which kicks off June 10th and runs through September 23rd. Will feature a career retrospective of the band's extensive 8 studio album catalog. First of all, Candlebox is one of those bands that I really liked when they first came out, and then I kind of threw them to the side. But they're actually have put out a lot of good material. They're a good band, but I still have to laugh in their faces if their farewell tour lasted to the first opener on a 3-band bill in the summer of 2024 after announcing their farewell tour in 2023.
I like the career retrospective. So in other words, like a lot of people are going to be going who wanted to hear stuff from the first 3 albums are like being introduced to some of that like late era Candlebox stuff for the first time, even though it's a career retrospective. It's like it's a reintroduction to new music for people, I suppose. I think we might have talked about this, but I think Kevin Martin's the only original member left in that band. I mean, which, you know, we're verging on Band of Theseus territory here. Especially because, like, I don't know the dynamics of the songwriting, but I'd be curious to know, like, especially in the early days, like how much Kevin Martin was writing of the music versus as Peter Klett, was that his name, the guitarist? I
don't remember.
Yeah,
but I looked this up recently, probably when we talked about Candlebox the last time. At one point, in an attempt to try and get out of the 4-record deal, Kevin Martin quit the band, and for a 3-year or a 4-year period, he was not getting any royalties. Okay. And then in 2011, they worked it all out. He started getting royalties again, and he started touring his Candlebox again. And I'm sure that's actually good for everybody who's a royalty and rights holder to keep the IP alive a little bit longer. And by the way, that dude, and this is germane to the topic, that dude can still sing his ass off. He sings just as well today as probably as he did back in the old days. He's got it.
I don't know if I've mentioned this on this podcast or not, but Candlebox was my first ever concert at the Toledo Zoo Amphitheater. And this would have been, gosh, I'm wondering if Lucy was even out yet. I can't remember anymore what year this would have been, but it would have been like 90. Yeah, Lucy would have been out because it would have been like 94, 95, something like that. But I think even so Dave Cruzen was drumming with Candlebox for a while. Do you know if he was drumming last night?
He was not.
Okay.
I'm 90.
For anybody who doesn't know, Dave Cruzen was the first official Pearl Jam drummer. Not the first drummer, but he was, yeah. But we're getting out of the way early, getting out early. But no, he was the guy who played drums on 10 for Pearl Jam. And then I know he joined Candlebox for 10,000 or no. Oh my gosh, what's their third album called?
Candlebox?
Yeah.
Is that Happy Pills or whatever?
Happy Pills, yeah. There's a song that's like got 10,000 in it or something, I think, that I was thinking of. But anyways, doesn't matter. Dave Cruzen joined them for that album, and then he was with them for a healthy amount of time. But
their current drummer is a gentleman by the name of BJ Kerwin. And when I searched his name, it shows up on his LinkedIn page. So
there you go. That's always a sign. But yeah, I don't know. Like,
how old are you? I'm old enough that I put my current band on my LinkedIn page.
I think, a lot of people say Matt Cameron is the luckiest drummer for getting to drum with Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, but people don't remember Dave Cruzen getting to drum with Pearl Jam and Candlebox.
And the answer is always going to be Josh Freese.
And also, though, Jack Irons, Red Hot Chili Peppers in Pearl Jam. So if other than Dave Abruzzese, who was pretty much never heard of again, if you drummed in Pearl Jam, you probably got to drum with another really good band at some point.
Yeah. All right. So after Candlebox opened, then Jerry Cantrell took the stage, and when he plays a lot of his solo stuff, but then he also plays select Alice in Chains songs. And I'm telling you, he should have been headlining. He absolutely should have been headlining when they, for his solo songs actually do really well. People have gotten into a tone and cut you in. But when he played Them Bones, Man in the Box, Wood, and Rooster to end the set, nobody was topping that. Nobody was topping that. And it's kind of a joke to me that Bush is the headliner of those three bands. In your mind, are Bush the biggest of those three bands?
No, absolutely not.
Or is it because Jerry Cantrell was as Jerry Cantrell and not Alice in Chains?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that's like the theory, but like anybody who's going to that show knows who Jerry Cantrell is. Like, they know he's Alice in Chains. Like, and I mean, he wrote every single iconic Alice in Chains song, like, not to mention his solo material, which is really damn good too. Like, I am certainly biased. I always say if I had a Mount Rushmore of favorite all-time musicians. There's no question Jerry Cantrell is on it for me. I love Jerry Cantrell.
Let's go to the monthly listeners.
Yeah, actually I'd be curious to know, but I owned Jerry Cantrell's signature Les Paul. I bought the Wino Epiphone Les Paul. So I'm in the bag for Jerry Cantrell, but
me too.
It's hard for me to really separate it, even though and this is not to disparage the other guys in Alice in Chains, who are all definitely incredible musicians, essential to the sound, the imagery, everything of Alice in Chains. I mean, those Mike Inez, Sean Kinney, even we've talked on here before about William Duvall and what a great job he does, filling in for Lane. But Jerry Cantrell is the heart and soul of Alice in Chains, and so
he was the reason that I wanted to go to the show. Of all the reasons, I was going because my friends wanted to go, and whenever I can get a group of people who want to go to a rock show with me, I'm probably in. But without Jerry Cantrell, I probably wouldn't have pushed the envelope on this one.
Sure. It's funny because I would never pay to see Bush unless it was a means to see Jerry Cantrell. And similarly, I saw Jerry Cantrell open for Creed, and I never would have paid money to go see Creed, but I went for Jerry Cantrell. This was on the right after Degradation Trip came out. I think it was probably just Volume 1. I don't even think Volume 2 was out yet. But yeah, I certainly was not there for Creed. And the moral of the story is Jerry's such a nice guy. He'll tour and play with anybody, but like, I wish he would gotta open for better bands.
So I did pay to see Bush. We went because we were looking for something to do on my birthday, and they were playing at the Roxino, and it was just kind of a goofy night out. And we were, with that lens, Bush was a pleasant surprise. It was kind of a fun night. But I discovered something about Bush seeing them this time that has me forever and ever and ever judging Bush. But let's go to the monthly listeners first.
Yeah.
So Bush monthly listeners, 3.228 million monthly listeners. What's the biggest song?
Glycerine.
Yeah, 228 million. What's the second?
Come Down.
Close. That's third.
Everything's In.
That's fifth.
Machine Head?
Machine Head is second. And Swallowed is fourth.
Yeah. Swallowed is a good song. I like Swallowed.
But to our point, how many monthly listeners does Alice in Chains have?
So you said 3 point something. I mean,
yeah,
I'm going to guess it's at least double that. So I'm going to go with 8 million.
8.7. I like your guess. It was good. It was good logic.
Yeah.
And granted, it wasn't Alice in Chains. But before we get to Bush, let's talk about who filling the role of Lane Staley was Greg Puciato.
Oh, yeah.
Most famous probably for Dillinger Escape Plan, which the first time I saw Jerry solo, Greg was singing, but it was on the back-to-back nights with Jerry playing one night of Louder Than Life and then Alice in Chains playing the second night. So we got to hear Greg Puciato do the Alice in Chains songs on the first night and then William Duvall do them on the second night. I don't want to sit here and try and rank them and say who's better. I'm just going to say Greg Puciato is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's a phenomenal frontman in his own right, for sure. Yeah, so when I saw Jerry open for Creed, Comes With the Fall was his supporting band, and I think they might have even opened that show. I can't remember if it was that time or another time that they opened for Jerry, but I almost think it was at that show that they played first. And for people who don't know, that Comes With the Fall was William Duvall's band. And then they played as Jerry's backing band. And so William was doing all of the Lane parts. And this predates, I believe. Now, I'm getting old, so sometimes my timelines get a little blurry, but I'm pretty sure he was not the official Alice in Chains singer yet at this point. Because I just remember being just blown away at how like relatively similar he sounded to Lane, and like he harmonized perfectly with Jerry. And so it was always like he was such an obvious guy to be the replacement when they decided they wanted to continue making new Alice in Chains music. William is the perfect fit for that. So I also don't really want to, and I have not seen Jerry with Greg, so I can't speak for firsthand knowledge, but I've seen YouTube videos. And I would just say he's every bit as I was gonna say good. Yeah, every bit is good.
They both
William is.
honor Lane very, very well.
Yeah, and they both do it. They're like, again, I'm basing this on a YouTube video, but they do it slightly differently.
Yes,
but like
they're not doing an impression.
That's what I was going to get at. But I don't feel like either one of them is just trying to be Lane Staley, and that's always been what I've appreciated about William, because I've seen Alice in Chains. In addition to seeing William sing as with Jerry solo, I've also seen Alice in Chains live with William as the singer. And, you know, obviously on the songs that he has written with the band, like his vocal style is very different from Lane, and those especially. But even when he sings live, it has it's hard to really describe. Like, it has the spirit of Lane, like the harmonies are still there, but the parts when William is not harmonizing, where he's singing like a Lane solo part, he definitely sings it more in his own voice. Because he's not doing an impression. He's not trying to be a tribute artist. He's just filling in as a singer, and his voice naturally sort of sounds like Lane a little bit.
And he probably doesn't have, very few people have the exact same range as Lane Staley had.
Right.
But it's really good. And when I saw the reformed Stone Temple Pilots with Jeff Gutt singing for Weiland, the mannerisms felt almost like it was more of an impression, and it was almost disconcerting. And I don't want to trash the guy, because he's trying to fill in for a man who passed away. And he's enabling the DeLeo brothers and Eric Kretz to keep going, which they deserve the right to do, especially as the primary songwriters of all that great music. But it's a delicate balance, and it's really hard to pull off. And I'm amazed at how Jerry has managed to find people to fill in and enable him to keep going. That doesn't come off it doesn't come off cheap in any way, shape, or form, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of cheap,
segue.
About halfway through the show of Bush, I kept hearing like maybe the microphone cutting out, and then all of a sudden the vocals would come in stronger. And I am 99% sure that there is a backing vocal track for every single song that Bush plays, and that maybe 75-80% of the vocals you're hearing when you see Bush live is recorded. It's being lip synced, and Gavin Rossdale is out there at 58 years old, trying to be sexy, dancing like a sexy man, wearing segue. Is it amazing to you that we've always called those cutoff t-shirts wife beaters in 2024, the year of our Lord?
Yeah, I mean, I think that.
But I don't even know what else to call that shirt. Everybody still knows it as a wife beater, which is like, I can't believe we used to call it that.
Yeah. Well, we still do, because it's just become what they are. But yeah, it's definitely a little bit of an awkward thing. I was trying to remember it when you said that.
So we were joking during the show that Gavin was showing side boob.
I'm trying to remember. I feel like a couple weekends ago or something, like I think it was like maybe I'm trying to think if it was like one of my nephews or somebody, you said wife beater, and then like so they were like, wait, why is it called that? And I was like, well, back in the 90s, you see. But no, I don't know what you would call it today, but yeah,
I mean, that's right up there with like when we used to play Smear the Queer as kids.
Yeah.
And like, oh yeah, no, we can't call that game that anymore. That's not right.
Definitely not. I'm curious is because I don't follow Bush much at all. I think I've talked about this on the podcast before. I mostly dislike Bush, or especially for the things they're well known for. Like I don't like 16 Stone even to this day. I mostly hate that album. But I do like Razor Blade Suitcase. Science of Things has some good songs, and Golden State has some good songs. But outside of that, I don't follow Bush at all. So is Gavin the only original member left in Bush?
He is.
Okay. So,
but here's the thing. Like, I understand that. I even accept backing vocal tracks and lip syncing in certain parts of music, but I have a real tough time accepting it in rock and roll music. And I have a double standard. Maybe I'm holding it to a higher standard, but it just seems to me that like if you can't do it anymore, you got to go Aerosmith. You got to cancel that tour, and you got to let it go. Imagine if Steven Tyler did an entire truly a retirement tour with a backing track and lip synced his way through it. There's just something so fraudulent about it. But I've seen some really big pop shows. My wife and I used to go to them from time to time because they're really fun. So we saw Taylor Swift on the 1989 tour, and I don't know how much she lip syncs. We saw Katy Perry on a tour. I'm sure she lip syncs a fair amount with all the gyrations and dance moves and choreography. And it doesn't really bother me because those are like Vegas shows. You're watching something else. I have no idea who was singing when I saw Roger Waters and that giant band, but I'm imagining he hired a lot of real singers, and it wasn't a lot of backing vocal tracks.
Sure. Yeah. So I watched a YouTube video not too long ago that was like, is Taylor Swift a good guitar player? And they were watching her live clips, and they were showing some interesting things she does as a guitarist. And I mean, the verdict was she is a good guitarist. Like, I mean, she's never going to be known as one of the all-time great guitar players, but
she is a better guitar player than Alanis Morissette is a harmonica player.
Yes. Yeah. But anyway, they showed what's your favorite Taylor Swift song? I can never
We Will Never Ever Get Back Together.
That's the one. They showed the clip of that, and she's clearly playing the intro. But then like as the song sort of kicks in, you can suddenly tell. You can hear it if you listen for it, but you can even just tell by watching her. They cut out her guitar, and even though she's acting like she's playing, she's not actually playing. It's now all backing track, and she's just strumming nothing. I mean, she's playing her guitar, but there's no sound coming out of it. And like in that context, like I don't really have a problem with that. Like she's an entertainer putting on a show. I feel like you a lot differently when it comes to a rock band doing that. Well, I would certainly have a problem with them doing that with the guitars. But I also I think it's just really cheesy and lame to do it with your vocals as a rock singer. And like,
well, hold on one second there, Andrew, because I was also very curious if Gavin's guitar was plugged in and playing some of the time during the show. And when they do Glycerine, and he does Glycerine all by himself, and if I don't think he's singing, and he's the only one on stage with a guitar, do I think he's playing the guitar as well?
Boy, I don't know. I would hope he's not.
Why would you play the guitar? And are you going to be able to play the guitar with a perfect match to a recorded vocal or would it just
That's a
mess
good
up
point.
all the synchronization?
That's a really good point, because it could make it more obvious that you are doing. I'm just trying to get in the mindset like of what's even the point. Like if Gavin's the only original member of Bush and he's not singing and potentially
He might
maybe
not be playing guitar.
even playing guitar, like he's just a prop at that point. Like you said, just out there to be sexy, right? Like and like that's just so antithetical to like everything I believe in rock music. And like I was even going to comment on, like, it's kind of interesting that you saw Candlebox. Well, Kevin Martin's the only original member there. You saw Jerry Cantrell, who's the only member of Alice in Chains, playing Alice in Chains song, and then you have Gavin, the only member of Bush. But like I even think it's like I have so much more respect for the fact that Jerry Cantrell doesn't need to use the name out. Like they could have sold a lot of tickets by calling it Alice in Chains and him doing Alice in Chains songs without the rest of the guys. Which I don't know, maybe he doesn't have the right to do that for whatever their arrangement is. I get it. I get that it's a little bit different. I'm doing a little bit of apples to oranges, but like I just have so much more respect for the fact that Jerry Cantrell can just use his own name and go out there and play. And yes, he's going to play some Alice in Chains songs, but like he can stand on his own artistry. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Kevin Martin, and but like at that point, like, is it Candlebox? Like you're just there seeing Kevin Martin. Why can't he just be Kevin Martin and play Candlebox songs? And why can't it be Gavin Rossdale playing Bush songs? Like to call it Bush, like it's so weird to me to do that. Like, because it's not Bush. You're there. Anybody going there is just seeing Gavin. And
it's also ironic that this week, I think it was last night, so we're recording this on Thursday. So Wednesday night in DC, I believe that was the latest tour stop for Coheed and Primus. And Claudio couldn't sing. And the band had a couple of guest singers. They played through the set and let the audience sing. They let the other guitar player and bass player kind of pick up some of the vocals, and they battled through. And like I get that might not be your ideal version of the show. Maybe there's some fans out there that wish there was a backing track and we could all just pretend, but I have so much respect for them as a band for just powering through. Claudio played all the guitar parts, and they did the best that they could, and I will always respect that more. But so maybe this just solidifies all the intuitions and feelings that you and I had about Bush. I liked Bush more than you did, but I always kind of slotted them appropriately as more of a, kind of a second or third wave, not the authentic article, the way that I thought of Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, or the top alternative rock acts of that era.
Well, first of all, you're making me thankful I saw Coheed last week while Claudio was still able to sing.
Because he's a killer.
Yeah. So I don't think I mentioned this last week. I'm not going to digress us too far here, but they also on this tour, Primus is covering a Rush song, and I will not remember the name of the song because I am not a Rush fan, but Claudio actually comes out and sings like the really high part because Les Claypool isn't gonna sing that part. Claudio can, and he crushed it, just absolutely crushed it, and it was awesome. So I'm glad I got to see all of that last week. But I just think like we have seen so many live performances.
And by the way, Andrew,
yeah.
Primus did not play that song on August 14th.
On August,
Claudio obviously.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Right. Yeah, because it's not going to be the same without it. But we've seen so many live performances on YouTube of singers struggling, like good rock singers struggling, and that's when you know.
By the way, the Rush song is Cygnus X1 for Cygnus the people X1. Who really want to know.
Correct. Yep. And it's an awesome cover. I really enjoyed the cover. I just don't like Rush, so I didn't. can't recall the name of the song off the top of my head, but it's so funny because it's so obviously a Rush song. Like, I feel like I would have guessed it even if I didn't, because I would have known, first of all, it wasn't a Primus song. So I'd have known it was a cover, and I feel like I could have almost guessed that it was Rush. But anyways, neither here nor there.
I didn't realize this either. I didn't realize that when you told me about the show. But from the earliest moments that Coheed came out, he drew comparisons to Geddy Lee. So the fact that he sang a Geddy Lee vocal on this tour is perfect.
It just makes sense. But yeah, so we've seen so many rock artists, singers, have off nights, and people will post it on YouTube. But like, I have so much more respect for that. Like the guys who just go out and just try to get through it, and it doesn't always work. I've seen some Josh Homme ones where he didn't have it. Just recently, Eddie Vedder, whatever show that was that in LA maybe? I don't remember where that was.
I think it was overseas, maybe in like Dublin. Oh yeah,
no, you're right. It was overseas, but it was an awful night for Ed. But they didn't lip sync it. They didn't play a track. And then when it was clear Ed couldn't do it, they had to cancel a couple shows, and that's life. But like, I have so much more respect for that. Like, if you're Gavin and it's not even and look, maybe it was a vocal issue. Maybe he had something going on and he felt like he couldn't sing. But like, if he's just healthy and normal, like, what is he even afraid of? Like, what's going to happen? Like, if you just go out there and play your songs, like, what are you worried about that you need a backing track for your vocals?
Well, when your whole image is being sexy and perfect, like, honestly, I hate to reduce it to that, but like, I mean, it all depends on what you're selling. And Kevin Martin from Candlebox and Jerry, they're selling the music and they're selling the songs and the songwriting.
Yeah.
And, I guess we now know what Bush and Gavin are really selling.
Yeah.
That's all. And I know people are going to be mad about this maybe, but I'm telling you, it's the truth. And if you start Googling Gavin Rossdale lip sync, you're going to find a lot of hits.
There we go. I don't know. I don't really have much else to say about it. Just, I like what you said. It sort of confirmed our suspicions, our issues that we kind of always have had with Bush, that it's been more of an image thing with them. And like, even their sound, especially on 16 Stone, to me felt so sterile and emotionless compared to a lot of the other rock music that was popular at that time. And so I never even really understood what people were drawn to, other than like Gavin Rossdale being sexy, right? Like, that was always
when he's running around the back of the audience, and because he ran through the entire it's not an arena because it's outdoor, but whatever, he's running through the entire venue, and some middle-aged lady like grabs him and kisses him on the cheek, like, oh, okay, we're throwing our panties at the stage. That's what this is about. This is Tom Jones.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, to be clear, Gavin Rossdale is sexy. Like, we're not gonna
sit a good-looking man.
We're not gonna sit there and deny that side of it.
No,
but I just, for me, it I don't always like. I'm not trying to just come across as a extreme purist and holier than thou and all that. Like, look, Gavin Rossdale's done something I could never do in building a career in music. Like, I'm not like taking any of that away from him. It's just not what I want out of a rock show. Like, part of the joy of seeing a live show is the imperfections, the little mistakes, the things that make that show unique and special. Is, sometimes some of my most memorable like live moments are things when a band might have screwed something up, and you kind of remember that, and you don't like point your fingers and laugh at them. It's like, oh, that was a cool moment. Like, this happened at that live show,
Well, and you and I were kind of wondering when Pearl Jam had that kind of somewhat disastrous show in Dublin, were they going to release the bootlegs? And sure enough, they did.
Yeah,
they did. They don't leave anything out. And I remember some of my favorite bootleg moments from Pearl Jam are like, oh, they started Rearview Mirror way too fast and they had to start it over again. Or I love all that stuff, and that if you treat all that stuff with humility and humanity, it actually, I think, does more to sell you as an artist than being perfect ever possibly could.
And that's why it's such an affront to us to lip sync, because you're denying us a chance to sort of have those moments in a live show. It just becomes about your image, and
or worse yet, you can't still do it at all. In which case, what am I paying for?
Yeah, you're paying to see Jerry Cantrell.
Yeah, that's true. I did, and and Jerry didn't lip sync. I could tell you that.
Absolutely not. I just want, and like, Jerry's got a new, did Jerry play any new songs from his upcoming solo album?
I don't think so.
So he's got a solo album coming out in October, which I'm super stoked about. Mate, we'll do a review of it for sure.
What's his new one called? Let me just tell you, he played 4 songs from Brighton, 1 song from Boggy Depot, 1 from Degradation Trip, and 1 from I Want Blood.
I Want Blood is the new album. So
okay, so he did play 1 from I Want Blood. I didn't recognize it.
Yeah, well, it's
Vilified. He played Vilified,
which is the only single he's released off of it yet so far. So, and I mean, you know, it's a good song. It's a Jerry Cantrell song. But I'll wrap this up just again by just talking about, like, I think it's pretty awesome, like, the career Jerry's built. Like, you know, when Lane passed away, well, even before he passed away, when it became clear Lane was not going to be able to sing anymore, I think there was like a real, like, dark cloud over what would happen. You know, like, Alice in Chains seemed dead. Like, it was done. There was no way Alice in Chains was going to ever play again. You know, and we knew Jerry could do solo music, but, like, you just didn't know, like, was he just going to become a sad legacy act type thing? And here he is all these years later. Alice in Chains has put out 3 or 4 albums after Lane. Jerry's put out 3, about to be 4 solo albums. Like, he's just a machine, and he's just still kicking ass. Like, everything he puts out is, he has never put out a release that I would say, well, maybe other than the Dinosaur album by Alice in Chains. I don't dislike that album, but I would say that's the closest thing to mediocre that Jerry's ever put out. But every single other release Jerry's ever put out has just been phenomenal. And
when I remember when I heard that Boggy Depot was coming out in '98, and I was like, I don't know if I want to even listen to this. And then by the time I finally did, I was like, all right, okay, I'm happy he made this, you know. And it was such a pleasant surprise, because you don't know. You don't know if a guy's going to be able to do it. The one thing, and this isn't like a criticism per se, but one thing that I did notice hearing the Jerry songs alongside the Alice in Chains songs is Jerry, without the rest of the band, is not edited the same way. He always goes for that chorus 1 extra time, or that 1 extra section. All the songs end up being probably 30 to 45 seconds longer than what I think they would have been. I always felt like the Alice in Chains left you wanting more.
Yeah.
And if I can't believe I'm not gonna be able to think of the song right now. If Them Bones was a Jerry solo song, how long would it be?
Yeah.
Makes me wonder.
Okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mentioned this to you offline earlier today when we were talking about the show. You know, some of that might just be a function of what Lane was capable of doing. Like, I don't mean capable as in, like, a bit singing ability. I'm talking capable of just his capacity, his faculties. Like, he was not a healthy person for much of Alice in Chains, and so maybe sometimes less was more with them, anyways. But
or maybe Mike and Sean we're like, yeah, I think this is a good place to hit the bridge and cut it or whatever.
That could be too. That could be too. But
either way, it's so cool. I know you kind of you were a little bit offended when I described it on Twitter as a night of butt rock. But I say that lovingly as a dad. I said I was going out to see a night of butt rock because like I have a freshman in high school. Next week he'll be a freshman in high school. And I'm telling you, I hear these songs through their ears now. And it's classic rock now, man. It's butt rock. No matter how much it meant to us or how authentic it was in the moment, it's all nostalgic and classic rock now.
But I think
so it's fine. I'm not upset about it.
I think, to me, I think of butt rock and classic rock as different things. So maybe this is a semantic argument, but
I want to dive into the semantics. Like what about butt rock doesn't work for you?
Butt rock to me is a very formulaic approach to music, to rock music. Like you're following a formula that is designed to be a rock song, capital R, capital S. This is rock song. And it's cookie cutter and generic. And so that's why I sort of see, I like having Jerry.
I think you might be right.
That way.
I think I might have been wrong. So I Googled it because that's what you do. The Urban Dictionary says it's a style of hard rock and heavy metal music that is watered down both musically and lyrically to garner maximum radio play and mainstream acceptance.
Yes.
And then people ask, is post-grunge butt rock? What kind of rock is Nickelback? Is Mudvayne butt rock?
Mudvayne is not butt rock. Let me just tell you that right
I
right
love
now.
Mudvayne, yeah. So I'm with you on that one. So okay, maybe butt rock is wrong, but I think my kids think of Alice in Chains as butt rock, even if it's not, and you and I don't.
Well, I will not speak ill of your children, but I disagree.
They know not what they do.
That's right.
Not what they do. All right. Last but not least, we don't dive into politics, but the Harris Walls campaign released a YouTube video where they talked about music. And you wanted to have a little discussion about that. I'm curious to find out where this one goes.
So we did talk about this a little bit a few weeks ago, a couple episodes back. We touched on when JD Vance's playlist was leaked and Death Cab's, was it Death Cab? Yeah,
yep. I will follow you into the dark.
Death Cab's guitarist took offense to being included on that list, and we sort of talked about our feelings on that. So I don't want to necessarily retread that territory, but this is a 10-minute sit down YouTube video. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz sitting face to face at a table, just talking about a bunch of different things. But one of the things they talked about was music. And so she's like, well, tell me what you think about music, and he talked about his love of Bruce Springsteen and The River, and sort of what that meant to him. He talked about buying his first car and having an 8-track in it, and he still has that 8-track to this day.
The previous owner had left Bob Seger in the 8-track player.
Yeah, and then Kamala talked about Aretha and Prince, and it's all harmless, right? But it just sort of struck me as I was watching this. I was like, I don't know why it just bothers me when politicians talk about music, because it's so hard for them to sound authentic talking about music, because it is necessarily designed, like they thought about who they were going to say they like. And they're doing it for a reason. Like they are trying
to. If Kamala loves NWA, she's not going to admit it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, I'm not doubting that they like these artists. Like, I'm sure they do. And Bruce Springsteen could very well be Tim Walz's favorite artist. I'm not questioning that per se, but the presentation of this was, oh, look how relatable we are, as opposed to, you know, our opponents. You know, we can just sit down and have a nice, jovial, friendly conversation about, like, it feels so phony, and it bothers me because, like, that's again antithetical to what like sort of rock music is to me, and like real, like the art form of music. Even when music is political, it's not political in the sense of, hey, politicians, take this and use this to show everybody how cool you are and how much, you know, how relatable you are to the people. And so I found myself,
even like the clout chasing of them trying to be relatable with these music choices.
Yeah.
Or were you left curious about what they were leaving on the cutting room floor? Like, let's say Andrew's running for office, which would never happen, or I'm running for office. I'm not going to tell anybody that, yeah, this death metal band from Louisiana, Acid Bath, that talks about like rape and murder and the worst things in the world. Love them. They're awesome.
And let me tell you about this band, Fucked Up. You know, like, so like, you know, I understand.
There's a little hardcore band from Massachusetts, letter A and C.
I like, let me see. I will say one thing. I liked Camilla's point about Prince being in the Venn diagram of her and her husband. I thought that was like kind of actually like a sort of like a cool point to make. That was like, hey, like that actually resonates sort of. But you sort of stole my thunder on where I was going, because literally, no, it's all good. It just shows how much our minds are alike when we talk about music. But because I really wanted to ask you, because like I also realized it to some degree I'm probably being a little unfair anyways, because like you can't extensively talk about music. They weren't going to sit down for an hour. Like, how many episodes have we done, hour-long episodes talking about all the music we love? And there's so much ground I want to touch on yet with this podcast. So like it's an infinite sea of material when it comes to talking about music. So I was curious if we were having this, like we needed to have like this sort of trimmed down conversation. And I was just to say to you, Craig, tell me about, you know, the music of your life. And you knew you had to condense this down to a short little bite-sized nugget to be reshared on social media. How would you answer that?
So I would stick to the real top line ones that wouldn't get me into any trouble. And I would go for diversity too. So in a normal conversation with you, I probably wouldn't bring up Prince, but I would absolutely bring up Prince. I would name check Guns N' Roses and Pearl Jam. And then I would say, you know, I went through a phase where I really love Public Enemy because I gotta get both sides. I gotta cover the waterfront. And then, oh, that first record by The Roots, loved it. And it's true, I did. But if I'm talking about my musical biography, I would never bring up The Roots. I liked one record, and I don't know that. But yeah, you're right. I would strategically pick things that I thought would touch on the most people that I want to vote for me.
So I sort of like was thinking about this, and I was like, well, I would definitely talk about Yield being my all-time favorite album, even though like the people who do connect with Pearl Jam probably mostly know 10 and Verses, maybe some Vitology, but like, you know,
you're gonna lose votes with that one.
You know, but there's no way if I was to distill anything about me musically, there's no way I could not talk about the fact that Yield is hands down my all-time favorite album. I would talk a little bit, perhaps even about why, you know, I would sort of talk about how to me Yield is sort of a unintentional concept album that starts out with this real volatile place, and it sort of talks about like just getting out of bad situations and just letting go and sort of coming out the other side a more complete person. And you know, if we ever do like a full breakdown of Yield, I can talk about some of these themes in depth, because I do think Yield is an unintentional concept album. But see, already I'm getting too wordy on this. Like none of this could be shared. So I would try to find a way to do this.
The video
really
was
short.
Only 10 minutes with two of them.
But like I did think to myself, I was like, the funny thing is while I unabashedly love Zach Bryan, like I'm in the bag for Zach Bryan now. Like since I first discovered him about a year ago, like I've just listened to him so much. But like, if we were talking about like in terms of my whole lifetime of listening to music, like Zach Bryan is like this tiny little thing, and it would be sort of inauthentic for me to really talk about him as like this like influential thing in my music. But I would still talk about him because I would want to be able to mention that I like, you know, because Zach Bryan is something that's going to connect to a lot of people, and it sort of branches out and shows that I listen to different genres of music, you know. And I might even throw like Kendrick Lamar out there, Danny Brown, something like that. You know, I've got some hip hop bona fides in there too, you know, like, so, and like none of that would be lying. I wouldn't be lying about who I like, but you're definitely presenting a version of yourself as a music fan. And just in doing that, you're already like, to me, sort of cheapening. Like, I've always hated people who were like posers about like the music that they like, you know. I'll never forget when I was in high school. I'm trying to remember White Zombie and who are they touring with? Somebody else huge. It was a really huge tour, and they came through Toledo, and a bunch of friends of mine went. And
in high school?
Yeah, when I was in high school. Yep. I can't remember who the other band was now, but it doesn't matter because a friend of mine who I knew didn't listen to White Zombie comes to school the next day wearing a White Zombie shirt, you know. And I remember like asking him like, "Oh man, like what was your favorite White Zombie song that they played?" You know. Oh well, like he couldn't name a single White Zombie song, and like it just drove me nuts. I'm like, what? You're wearing a White Zombie shirt and you can't name a single White Zombie song? Like, come on, you know. So I've always had this like part of me that's just kind of like, I don't like people presenting a front of the music that they like. Like, I want to know authentically what you like. And so I don't know, maybe Kamala and Tim were being totally authentic about who their absolute favorite music is, and that's fine. But I just thought it was kind of interesting. I just kind of wanted to have a conversation with you about like how you would handle that situation, you know, where you have to really distill a lifetime of music and a lifetime of influence into like a short little soundbite, because it gets really hard to do, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm with you on this one. And at the same time, like I understand why they do it. Like they're trying to be relatable, and they're trying to hit the widest swath of people possible. You know, the video is called Kamala Harris and Tim Walz on Tacos, Music, and the Future of America. It's like, okay, tacos, music, and the future of America.
But I'll tell you one thing, though. It was effective because I saw the music section already pulled out into its own thing on YouTube, getting passed around. Everybody, you know, offering up their opinions about the music. And, you know, but like, I will tell you this. I'd be willing to bet any amount of money that Bruce Springsteen will not put out a public letter condemning Tim Walz for citing the river as the most influential music in his life. So, you know, I suppose that's the lingering difference between Republicans and Democrats right there.
Yeah. Well, and we should probably end on that one because there was one more musical cease and desist that happened this week.
Oh, there was? I must have missed this one.
I think I pointed it out to you. You forgot.
Oh.
There was a song that was used at Trump Vance rally that the artist condemned, and they said they ended their condemnation with, "And really, that song?
Oh,
really?
What was it? Yeah, but now I cannot remember what the song was.
It was Celine Dion with "My Heart Will Go On."
The Titanic song, yes, which is a perfect way to end it. By the way, yeah.
Oh, but now I want to know what the context was that they were playing "My Heart Will Go On" at a Trump Vance rally, that she commented on it, or her people commented on it, or whatever.
I don't know. It defies explanation,
But that song, by the way, that song makes everything better, everything more dramatic, everything more meaningful. It's one of the most effective songs in the history of music.
Yeah. And also, I realize now, though, so like, is that the kind of music that Donald Trump just listens to? Like, because we know at least what they, Well, we know what JD Vance listens to because he did not put that out as a front. That was a leaked playlist. So somebody data mined his Spotify playlist. So we know what JD Vance listens to. And not terrible taste in music. I'll give him that. Like, for like a politician type guy, like it's you know, it's about what you would expect. So we've heard now what Kamala and what Tim listened to, but what kind of music does Donald Trump listen to? I actually have absolutely no idea. I cannot imagine. I just cannot visualize in my head Donald Trump listening to music, any kind of music.
He's a big music fan. I can't remember what he listens to, but he is a big music fan.
I just,
you know, he's like that a different era. He's, you know, that 70s club, that disco era. I'll look it up for another time, but let's end with the statement from Celine Dion's management team. Today, Celine Dion's management team and her record label Sony Music Entertainment Canada Inc. became aware of the unauthorized usage of the video, recording, musical performance, and likeness of Celine Dion singing "My Heart Will Go On" at a Donald Trump JD Vance campaign rally in Montana. In no way is this use authorized, and Celine Dion does not endorse this or any similar use. ... And really, comma, that song?
So you said video?
That's what it says.
They played the video of the Titanic.
I don't know, man.
At their own campaign rally.
Well, that's why she ends it. And really, that song?
I mean,
it's not a metaphor. That's some unintentional comedy.
Like, I suppose, like, it being authentic here, like, I suppose the imagery they're trying to go for is that America is the Titanic, that we're being sunk, but like through Donald Trump, our heart will go on. But
who's the king of the world? Who's grasping onto it to the side of a life raft or a door?
Is it Trump
or whatever?
Or is it JD? Who's the big spoon? Who's the little spoon?
All right. Well, and with that, we are going to end the podcast
before this podcast becomes a Titanic.
Man, if we had music clearance, I would totally end with "My Heart Will Go On."
Absolutely.
Song is a banger.
Use AI to put us in the video, you and me.
That'd be so sweet.
Oh, man.
So sweet.
All
right. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. Please do all the things that help us out. Like, subscribe, tell a friend. We're enjoying doing this thing. We just want more people to see it and hear it. So until next time, it's been the Album of Record podcast.